Looks like I could use a little something, don't you think? Now that's more like it. You know, it's those little details that make the big difference. So today we're going to explore some ways to enhance our everyday lives with some finishing touches. Come on, let's dig in. Now where's that salt and pepper? You know, perennials and shrubs are the foundation of a garden. But when it comes to flower power and color, I'm telling you, it's really hard to beat annuals. For instance, in this bed in my garden, I wanted to give it that sort of cottagey sort of feel, mix it all up. So I started in the back with some taller bloomers, like this little cleome called Senorita Rosalita. Love this plant, blooms all summer long. Then just in front of Senorita Rosalita, I have this marvelous Angelonia. This is called Angel Face Blue. Notice the very spiky form that you get with this particular flower and all the tiny little flowers on it. This too will bloom all summer long. Then to pop up the contrast a little bit, from this beautiful bluish purple, I use the complementary color yellow. And you can see with this little plant called Bidens. Now this particular variety is called Goldilocks Rocks, and I'm telling you, she rocks. Now, as the name implies, annuals typically last for one growing season, or a year, if you will. And that's the great news for gardeners like me who love to try new things. You see, every season, annuals provide an opportunity to give my garden a totally new look by replacing just a few plants. Annuals are also great for beginning gardeners because you don't have to worry so much about the placement of these in containers or beds compared to perennials and shrubs. You see, these are considered the bones of the garden, so you need to consider how they're going to grow out and look over time, and that can be a little bit daunting. On the other hand, annuals are much simpler. Just place them where you have some room in your garden. Pick something that fits your look, and they will finish it out in a beautiful way. Garden accessories with style. Ideas to complete the look of your living space, and accenting with herbs when garden style returns. At Morven Museum and Gardens in Princeton, New Jersey, they're taking art in the garden to the next level, quite literally.
Morven was the home of one of the signers of the Declaration of Independence, Richard Stockton. But it has a very long history. Many of the Stockton family members lived here. They all played roles in government. In the early 1900s, Helen Hamilton Shields Stockton moved in here, and she wanted to make Morven a garden showplace. So she created the Colonial Revival Garden. She really created it out of her imagination. Now, after the Stocktons were no longer here, it was the governor's mansion, the New Jersey governor's mansion, up until the 1980s. And it became a museum shortly after that. In the garden, we have an exhibit of trellises, which is a lot of fun. A trellis is a great finishing touch to a garden because you always need vertical elements in a garden. It's not your typical exhibit. We opened it up for the community. Morven is, after all, the people's house, so we reached out to all the arts groups in the area, the gardening groups in the area, the sculptors, the businesses, and we got tremendous response. It was, people really loved the idea, and you'll see that they came up with some really fun ideas. Most of them did grab onto the whimsy of the idea. I think the fun of it infected their designs. Trellises are functional, but they also can be very artistic. I happen to be a lover of vines, which is where the idea came from originally. I'm a longtime gardener. I've always loved vines. I've loved them climbing on various things. And I think the more creative you can get with your trellising, the better. And because a trellis can be planted with flowers, with vegetables, it can be a really useful part of the garden too.
Container gardens add visual interest to all types of areas. We'll explore this and more when Garden Style returns. You know, there's just something about having lots of beautiful flowers around your house that makes it feel more like a home. You know, whether you have limited space or you're just trying to do something a little more creative around your garden, containers, gardening in containers is the way to go. Now, there are 5 simple things that I want you to remember that will make your endeavors in gardening even more successful. Now, you have to start with a container, and believe me, the size of the container really matters. The larger the container, I think the better. You don't want something too small because you're not going to have enough soil volume to really support the plants the way you want. For instance, I'm going to plant 3 of these Supertunia Raspberry Blasts in this container, so you got to have plenty of room for them to grow. The other thing you want to keep in mind is whatever kind of container you use, you want to make sure that it has a drain hole in the bottom. Most of these plants do not like to sit in soggy soil. But if you use clay or ceramic, it can be fragile, particularly when temperatures drop below freezing. Okay, the next thing you need to keep in mind is the soil. You need a good garden soil that's blended for container gardening. This makes a big difference. You want a soil that when you squeeze it like this and you hold it in your hand, it crumbles and falls apart just like that. You see, you want to make sure that the soil drains well, and that is an indicator also that the soil is going to drain well. Okay, the next thing you need to think about is fertilizer, nutrition. You need to make sure that your plants are well fed. So I start out with a granular fertilizer that I work in the soil, like this. You can use a slow release that can feed them over the season. Once you get them planted, then you can begin feeding them regularly with a water-soluble plant food, and that'll really increase the flower power. Next comes the plants. This is where it gets really exciting because there's so many beautiful plants to choose from. For instance, in this container, I mentioned I wanted to plant some of these Supertunias. I just love these. And this one is called Raspberry Blast. So what I'm going to do here is I'm creating a singular sensation, meaning that I'm putting all of one variety in one container, kind of like I did up here by the front door. But if you want to get really creative, one of my rules of thumb is to mix it up just a little bit and use 3 different types of plants. Okay, now let's talk about water. Water is very important. You just want to make sure that you're actually watering the soil and deep soaking the roots of the plants and not spraying water all over the foliage and the blooms. You see, when you do that, you create an environment in among the leaves and so forth that just creates a breeding ground for disease, which is no good for your plants and no fun for you. With these, I'll deep soak the soil and the roots around these plants as soon as I get them planted, and I'll make sure the soil remains consistently moist. Now, when to water? This may seem like a really basic question, but it's really not. The best way to test is just to go and stick your finger in the soil. If it feels dry, then the plants need some water. And you may think, well, if this container needs water, then they all do. Not necessarily true. If you have smaller containers, they're going to dry out more quickly. So the next time you garden in containers, give these 5 tips a try and just see what a difference it can make in the health and the beauty of your plants. We're getting personal with designer Tobi Fairley just after the break. Tobi, I love the way this room looks. You've changed it a little since I was here last.
We have. You know, we've lived here for probably 5 or 6 years, and I was just kind of needing a little bit of excitement in this space. So we punched it up a little bit.
Bumped it up with, I see the orange.
Yes, we had
You're
an
in an orange phase,
I know.
I can
Well,
tell.
it's one of my favorite colors, as you can see.
It's a
but
good
definitely have brought that in.
Yeah. You know, it's actually comforting, I think, for people to see a decorator at home and understand that they don't just sweep out everything in a room, but you actually change a room over time and to fit your lifestyle.
Well, because for me, if I ever bought it once, I still love it. You know, it's not like going out and buying a whole store of things and bringing them home and then getting rid of those. It's really about bringing in things that speak to you, that you love, that you really use. I have always loved an edited room and not too much clutter, but I will say that as I've settled into this space, I've brought in more things that I love, that, like you said, feel nurturing, a little more cozy. I love to read. I have a collection of architecture and design books, so instead of putting them away, they're here, they're on the table, they are the accessory.
Yeah, they're beautiful.
But they mean something to me. It's not just stuff.
And it's amazing what you can do with just adding some pillows or even a throw over a chair.
Right, so that's how I really infused color. You look at the room and you think, oh, it's an orange room, but it's not. It's a couple of orange pillows, a couple of orange lamps, a little throw. So it's the smaller details. And even taking that a step further, it's even the grosgrain on the edge of the lampshade. So the little finishing details that makes a room really unique.
Right. Then, of course, flowers.
Oh, I mean, my favorite accessory.
I love these tulips. They're fantastic.
Thank you. Well, I mean, I can't have enough fresh tulips in my life.
I'm the same way. And I'm looking over in this other room here, which is more of a green, blue, cooler color thing. You've got fresh flowers in there as well.
Right, so I transitioned the green right into there, but we brought in another color.
Now this room has a completely different energy about it. Your base color is sort of a taupe to cream.
Yeah, it's much lighter.
Yeah, green, as you mentioned, and these pillows are beautiful.
Thank you. You know, these are something decorative that I created, but this was a gift from a friend, and it's actually an Hermes scarf that she brought me from Paris. And I don't really wear scarves that much, so I thought, why not be able to enjoy it every day? So
well, the pattern is gorgeous with these two stripes.
I loved the way that it really incorporated all the layers of green, and then it really transitioned me right into that lovely blue.
Beautiful, beautiful. Let's talk about this bust on the coffee table, because that really is a unique signature.
Isn't that kind of fun?
I mean, it's wearing your jewelry.
Exactly. So, you know, I loved the bust, and she was looking a little boring one day when I walked by and said, wouldn't she look great in my Chanel beads?
Let's dress her up for a party.
We dressed her in pearls for the party, and, you know, until I come down and put them on for one of my perfect outfits, they get to live there.
That's very good.
It's not exciting to just go buy things for the sake of filler or because you need something. I want to walk through a space and go, oh, I remember when we bought that, or that was for my travels to Scotland, or my friend picked this up in Paris. It brings a memory. It makes me feel, you know, excited and really, it's kind of heartwarming. So
it's meaningful.
It is. It's meaningful. So I think that's the best tip on accessorizing. Put things in your home that mean something to you, and you'll always enjoy them.
I love it. And what a beautiful finishing touch to bring that into a room.
Thank you.
It's marvelous.
So speaking of finishing touches, let's have some refreshments
I'm
and finish this day.
I'm all about that. Great. Coming up, herbs bring a little something extra to the table. Herbs are useful in so many ways. Of course, the first thing we think of is eating them, using them to flavor our foods, but also like to use them in decorative ways. For instance, the centerpiece, well, it's a small window box made of clay that I've planted with a wide range of herbs. It's beautiful, green, fragrant, and most of all, it's easy to make. You see, I started with a terracotta long trough in the shape of a window box. First, I filled the container with a soil that's mixed for container gardens. You see, you want it to drain very well. And then I just simply planted 4 different herbs. I chose sage, Italian flatleaf parsley, rosemary, and some lemon thyme. Now, if you do this, choose any variety of herbs you like. You see, the great thing about using a long, narrow container like this filled with herbs is that it's very versatile. In fact, it's as versatile as the herbs themselves. There's more garden style just around the corner. I have to say, there's something really marvelous about taking something that's everyday or ordinary and bumping it up, just giving it a little lift, adding that finishing touch. I hope you've enjoyed today's show as much as I have. It's been all about enhancing these things that we love. I post a lot of them on my Facebook page, and I hope you'll check them out and even suggest some of your own. For Garden Style, I'm Alan Smith. Now this particular variety is called Goldilocks Rocks, and I'm telling you, she rocks. She and the senorita have a good time. Yeah. I have a cat.
Bonnets and creatures. Creature comforts.
I think it'd be hilarious.
Creature comforts is the name of it.
Okay. Get my personal space, Nikki. It's sort of like that looks good when you do.
You see, the great thing about a long, narrow container like this is